Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. The Draft Professor is the only interactive mock draft simulator. The interactive mock draft simulator has fans mock drafting against the picks of other fans every time you do a mock. This is a first round challenge, which has fans identify their 5 best first-round picks, and fans of the other 31 teams will be mock drafting against your preferred first-round pick. There is a second-round challenge on the simulator, which allows fans to identify their 10 best 2-round drafts, and this will adjust the draft board so that fans of other teams are mock drafting against your best first and second round picks. The Draft Professor has ranked players functionality. This allows users to rank players at their positions and group them in tiers to be able to compare with other draft boards. The Draft Professor has draft a team functionality, as you see here. Draft a team allows 2 or more users to each snake draft a 22-player team, and you can use this to identify your my guys or identify the depth of your draft board, and it allows users to do a mock draft a much different way than any other draft simulator. Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. This episode will begin shortly. Thank you. Wow. So we've got a lot of people already. So the momentum is building. So my name's Jim. Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I'm joined by Randall, Cole, and Bill. Randall, how you doing?
Good. Ready for round 2. Let's roll.
How you doing, Cole?
I'm good. Ready to get started.
Fantastic. So, Bill, you ready?
I'm ready, trying to break the curse of sequels aren't always as good. This one's going to be better than the first one, I think.
Yeah, this is looking like the sequel's going to be better. So if we just finished our wide receiver scouting reports, we took a 15-minute break, and these are the wide receiver rankings of the 4 of us. And this is the result of a lot of work that was put in by Bill, Randall, and Cole. And I definitely want to give a shout out because we have been podcasting about wide receivers since October 18th, covering, we'll call it, let's say, the top 40 or top 50 wide receivers in college football. Some of the guys we reported on went back to school. They've been eliminated from these lists. But these are the top wide receivers from the 4 of us. And the way we're going to go is I'm just going to kind of kick this off right now. And then we'll kind of go the order of these. So this is Cole's list. This is my list in the middle. This is Bill's list in the middle. And this is Randall's list on the far right. But what I would like to point out at the beginning is basically look at Jack Bech and Tai Felton. You're going to notice Tai Felton for each of us is a top 10 wide receiver. So all of us, with the different analysis techniques that we've used, Tai Felton is a top 10 receiver. I want to give a shout out to Randall because he got eyes on Jack Bech in October and called him a second round pick. Like he said, clearly top 64, and he's going to go higher. So Jack Bech is going to be high for at least 3 of us. I'm just going to say for at least 3, but it is not 4. And then would also like to point out Evan Stewart. So he's relatively consistently ranked, but 3 of the 4 of us have Evan Stewart as a top 15 wide receiver. With that being said, Cole, do you want to talk about Kaden Prather and Jayden Higgins specifically? Those are 2 players that are in your top 10 that didn't crack the top 10 of the other 3 people?
Yeah, so I'll just gloss over them. Kaden Prather, teammate of Tai Felton, bigger body, bigger built guy compared to Tai Felton, who's more of a deep threat burner guy. He is a little bit longer, but I digress. Kaden Prather, awesome body control, awesome hands. Watch the USC game specifically. You're watching him twist and contort his body to jump over corners and make catches. There's one on a deep left hash or deep right hash. I'm blanking a little bit, but just turned, contorted, and got up there and secured the catch. That was one of his best receiving games, and you see that type of potential flash in multiple others as well. My only real concern with him is the production consistency. You haven't really seen too many like huge seasons from him, but what you watch on tape and those numbers are solid enough for me to be like, yeah, in a weaker receiver class, this is a top 10 guy just off potential and what he can do athletically with when he gets the ball thrown to him.
And then how about Higgins?
As for Higgins, this is a guy, if you were here for the first podcast of the night, I had harped on. He's a guy that my eyes didn't agree with my numbers, but I'm not going to disregard my numbers, which have worked so consistently for me over the past couple of years. While I do think Higgins needs to kind of learn how to use his size in situations before the catch, whether it's in his route running or his run blocking, you watch him, and when he plays at the size that he does at about 6'3", 215, when he's in and out of his breaks, while it can be a little bit awkward at times, he really does do a good job at kind of shaking and getting corners to go where he's opposite of where he's going to go. We kind of talked about it earlier. Smaller, faster corners are going to be able to get that jump on him a little bit. He is a tad slow. He has super long strides. He almost, when I think of Jayden Higgins, I kind of think of a giraffe in the way that he runs and kind of the way that he's built. It's like a long but filled out, but like also sort of lanky type frame. He has strong hands, had a streak of 7 games in a row consecutively with a touchdown, red zone threat. Needs to refine his route running a little bit on the deeper routes, but intermediate, in-breakers, out-breakers, hitches, his average depth of target could improve, but that might just be an Iowa State thing. Long catch radius, so I think he's a power slot guy at the next level, but yeah, that's kind of what I think about Jayden Higgins there.
Okay, and Bill, do you want to talk about Pat Bryant and anybody else on your list that jumps out at you?
Yeah, so before I jump to Pat Bryant, I'm going to scoot all the way back up to the top of my list, and I'm going to talk about Elic Ayomanor. So for those of you that follow me on X at Sparks Scouting, you already know that this take is coming, but I'm going to double and triple down on it. I said that Elic Ayomanor, if he declared for the NFL draft, he was going to be a round 1 prospect, hands down, and I'm standing 10 toes down on that take. This is a guy 6'2", 210. There's a high possibility he could be running a 4.4 in the 40-yard dash, has the hands that you look for. He has that size profile that you want. We talked about him at length. The biggest knock on him people seem to have is that there's no production. There's no production. If he's got all these traits, he should have more production. I understand that. But you also have to watch the tape and watch the quarterback play that he was dealing with, which was subpar at best. And even with that subpar, he still ended up with 830 yards and 6 touchdowns. And I point to games against San Jose State, NC State, Wake Forest, where you saw those flashes. So Elic Ayomanor has been my guy since Halloween. He's going to continue to be one all the way up until draft day. In my most recent mock, I mocked him 22nd overall to the Washington Commanders. And I think that is probably going to be his floor as we start to move through this draft process. But now let's flip the script and let's go down my list a little bit to Pat Bryant. And people probably think, well, 14th on your list, that's quite a bit of a drop. Yes. However, by that same token, 14th on my list, it just shows how deep this wide receiver class is because Pat Bryant is still a 3rd round grade. So I have 14 wide receivers that would be 3rd round or better. Pat Bryant when I talked about it in the scouting report we did on him on this channel, which if you haven't watched that, make sure you go and flip back through it and check it out. I made a hot, not a hot take, but a medium warm take that he was the best vertical receiver in this wide receiver class. I still stand by that. This is a guy who's going to get up and down the field very quickly, good long strider, got good speed, very physical route runner, and he has what I call a zip code catch radius. If it's in his area, it's coming to him, bar none. I mean, you look at the game back on November 23rd against Rutgers, 7 catches, 197 yards, and a touchdown, and it showcased his skill set in those vertical routes. So those are 2 of my guys on this first page here. Randall, what do you have on your first page of your big board that you want to talk about?
All right. Well, yeah, I do remember that take, and I know sometimes you're a boy who cried wolf on hot takes, but that one was a hot take. I'll give you that one. I guess the number one that I'm going to talk about, because I'm pretty sure he may not be on your top 40, is Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas. I live about 5 miles from the Razorback Stadium, so I've seen him live a lot of times, and I truly do love him, so this may come on a small bias, but I think he's getting underappreciated in a lot of mock drafts and things along those lines. 6'4", 202, good size. He's going to run a decent 40. He's got very long arms. He has been on 2 teams. Last year was with he was UCF, got benched. Now I can't even think of his name. And then this year with Taylor Green, both pretty raw quarterbacks that had pretty bad play as well as bad offensive line play. We're talking in the SEC with the 109th worst offensive line in back-to-back years sort of thing. But when it came down to that, Andrew Armstrong was one of the most reliable people on that whole entire team for the past 2 years, and he doesn't shy away from big competition. We're talking about Tennessee when we pulled that upset. He had 6-72, Texas A&M, 10-164 versus Oklahoma State. He had 9-132 against Tennessee, 6-72 from Texas A&M. 7 catches, 94 yards, and 1 touchdown versus LSU. Anytime that those big games come up, he is always reliable. Those go routes, it looks like he has 0 separation. He just gets it thrown up there because the offensive line is bad. He comes down with it. He can run the short and intermediate routes. He can do it all. I think he's getting very underrated right now. And I'm not telling people to put him in the day 2. I think he's an early day 3 with a high upside kind of guy.
And then, Randall, I want to chime in there as well.
Yeah.
So you're not the only one with Armstrong that high. I believe it's Alex from Hail Mary Sports, right? And you might see him on Bro Small's podcast once in a while. He's as high on Armstrong as you are. You might be the first on the island, but your island is about to get more crowded, I think. I think as the draft cycle goes on, watch Andrew Armstrong. I think he's going to be moving up, but did not mean to interrupt. Keep going.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, Drew Bands, I'm going to tag you on this, so if you see it, I'm talking about you. Then I'll talk about Jack Bech, because we did talk about that earlier. I do love Jack Bech, and me and Cole had a similar thought process when we were watching him, as he's kind of – I don't think that anybody's allowed to say, comp anybody to Cooper Kupp, because Cooper Kupp is one of one. It is insane what Cooper Kupp does sort of thing, but he has those tendencies of Cooper Kupp. I just watched Jack Bech, and when he's playing, he – doesn't run elusive routes, but when he runs it, he knows where he's going. He knows the timing. He's very good at timing, and he always has that separation. You're watching him run a route. He gets that separation, gets that ball. He's always never afraid to go in the middle of the field. He'll catch those inside slants when double covered sort of thing, and he'll come down with them. He's QB friendly, basically for all quarterbacks, I believe, in my personal opinion. He's got stats to back it up. There's one where he had a touchdown against UCF. That was good route awareness, when to pivot, made an inside post, made a quick twitch on his double route for a touchdown. I love that. I see him as that early day 2, and hopefully, everybody else does.
And then you want to talk about Savion Williams as well.
Oh, Savion Williams. Okay, yeah, so I didn't prepare Savion, but I will just talk about him sort of thing. Me and Bill have completely different aspects of Savion Williams. Big guy, I believe 6'4", large sort of thing. He is that dual threat that TCU starting to do sort of thing. In the back half of the year, they started using him in the run game, and he started going along those lines in the run game, which then gave him more stats, but he was efficient in them sort of things. I will say Bill is correct in some of his knocks. His route tree is not the greatest sort of thing, and he's more surprisingly for I believe I think he's 6'4", 225. He uses more elusive moves than he does aggressive and physical moves. I would like to see him more on the physical side, being 6'4", 225, and just trying to bruise people sometimes instead of trying to do missed tackles. He has like 24, 26 missed tackles this year sort of thing, which is impressive. But you're also a large gentleman. Just start bulldozing people kind of in a Debo role. If you're going to get those runs, I want to see you kind of bruise. I'm high on him. I think I have him at 10 or 11. Because of his potential upside. I do believe that Savion Williams probably has the lowest floor, but he also may have the highest ceiling in the wide receiver department. So when it comes down to it, I don't want to take him in day 2. I would like to take him in day 3, and hopefully in a sound wide receiving room, he can learn from a lot of people and then become who he is. I don't expect a first-year production out of him and things along those lines, but his ceiling's crazy high, and I'd like to see that work.
Fantastic. So on this page, I'm going to list off some Senior Bowl players, but if any of my fellow podcasters tell me that I missed somebody, gently remind me. So Jack Bech will be at the Senior Bowl. Tai Felton will be at the Senior Bowl. Savion Williams will be at the Senior Bowl. Is Ja'Cory Brooks?
No, I think he's shrined.
He is shrined. Pat Bryant will be at the Senior Bowl.
Thank you.
I believe Tez Johnson will be as well.
Yeah. Does anybody have Tez Johnson in their top 15?
Besides
yes.
I say I have him at 12.
Oh, never mind.
Okay. I
think Tez for me is like 16 or 17.
Yep. Okay.
And then Xavier Restrepo is the other big one that we've got across the board.
Yep.
Our top 5, top 10. So he'll be at the Senior Bowl as well. And we'll be covering him on this channel in our Senior Bowl coverage.
Okay. So this is showing 16 to something. And so there's an algorithm for how many players it puts on the graphic. And we all did not rank an equal number of wide receivers. So the goal is to talk about receivers that we have in top 175 or round 5 or better. So that range is obviously going to show itself on this page more than it did the previous one. A couple players maybe that would be interesting to talk about here would be Brennen Presley. I'm looking. So, Bill, you're the only one with Brennen Presley. So, Bill, who do you want to talk about on this page? And just include Brennen Presley and anybody else that you'd want to talk about.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys on this page that I'd want to make sure I cover. The first one being Nick Nash. I mean, this is a guy coming into the season a lot of people probably had as like an undrafted free agent. But, I mean, man, he is a stat sheet stuffer. Over 100 catches. Almost 1,400 yards, 16 touchdowns. He has legitimate deep threat ability, really great hands, and he's got the frame that you want in a guy of his size and stature. That's why I've got him ranked right here. And the guys that are on this screen currently are in that round 4, 5 range for me. So the start of day 3, which is where I'd feel comfortable taking a Nick Nash type of guy just because of that level of competition. Right behind him, Jim, you talked about him as Brennen Presley. You know, Presley's a 5'8", 175 speedster slot burner type of guy. Really good route runner. Really love his leadership quality. Was a multi-year team captain. So this is a guy that's going to be a leadership of your locker room. But the reason he's so low here is he's 5'8", 175. And that's what he's listed at. But I have a feeling he's going to come in lower than that. So that's where I'd want to take him on a day 3 because he's very dynamic and he's gonna be a dynamic slot guy, but he's never gonna play on the boundary for you. Another guy that I will cover here as well, who's currently playing in the Notre Dame versus IU college football playoff game, is Beaux Collins from Notre Dame. this is a guy that I really like. I think I'm probably a little bit higher than most, right around the same, maybe. But I mean, this is a guy that he's a prototypical X frame receiver. This is a guy that's going to be that prototypical X for you. He has the really good ability to find soft spots in zone coverage. When we talk about those scramble drill guys that they sit in a zone, wait for the quarterback to move around, he can move around, and we don't see it too often because Riley Leonard's a statue in the pocket and just doesn't move unless he's running. But this is a guy that has that ability. He can also be used outside and in the slot as well. And I really like Beaux Collins. Like if he's there on day 3 and my team, the Browns, are looking to add to their receiver room and they haven't already, I would not be mad to see Beaux Collins wearing the orange and brown. But those are probably 3 of the guys that here on page 2 that I would be the highest on and banging the table for.
So Randall, how about you? Anybody on your slide here that you'd want to speak
Yeah,
about?
sure. I'll go with Quan Felton, Virginia Tech. I really liked his size at 6'5", 212. High school, he was smaller, so he got a growth spurt in college, which was crazy. He is a little slim, but I do like how quick-footed and twitchy he is for 6'5", 212. He moves clean. I think he has pretty good releases. He can decelerate well for a 6'5" guy. His catch radius is really good. He has big, good hands, has some drops, but he's been fixing them throughout his collegiate year. Virginia Tech doesn't use him as much as they should in that offense, so the tape just doesn't kind of stand out to his traits, so I like his traits more than the tape. But I have him pretty high, and I believe Cole's with me on that one too.
Yep. Cole, anybody on your slide that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I'll go with Ja'Cory Brooks, personal favorite, and Elijah Badger, since Randall had gone over Felton already. So I'll start with Badger. He's an older guy. I believe he's a 4th or 5th year senior. Plays at Florida. He has had solid years of production in a row. Nothing crazy, nothing that's going to be like, yeah, this is a top 75 guy. But when I watch him, I watch a guy who plays with a veteran instinct of understanding cushions and where to be to help out his young quarterback, DJ Lagway. There was a play, I don't remember the game, but he was facing his own coverage and he had a choice route. And what he did at the time did not look from the receiver's perspective and what the coverage was giving him for just Elijah that he should have done. It didn't look like it was correct. But then you watch the playback and you watch he folded into his own because he knew he had a running back leaking out into the flat, taking away another defender. And DJ Lagway was under some pressure. And Elijah stood still, and used strong hands and made a catch and got upfield for a first down. And that's what he does. He's a veteran. He is super smart. He has nice hands. He has solid routes. And he's not going to be a guy that blows you away with his athleticism. But he makes all the catches you want. He runs all the routes you want. And he just knows how to play the game the right way. So I could totally see him coming in the 3rd or 4th round as a 3, kind of in that Luke McCaffrey range last year, to be a little bit more recent. But that's kind of where I am on Badger. As for Ja'Cory Brooks, he is not actually supposed to be 24 on the graphic. He should be way higher, probably into that top 15. Love Ja'Cory Brooks. Not going to go over him too much as I went on way in depth earlier in the night. But super fluid athlete, long speed, only plays on the right side. Fun fact. We confirmed that also earlier. Yep. Good hands, has all the route tree, or I should say good hands in contested catch situations, knows how to run all the routes. Might need a little bit more refinement, but this is a guy that I could totally see coming in 3rd round pick, developing into a nice wide receiver too, a nice Z for a team, and being a nice 600 to 750 5-touchdown receiver year in, year out as an NFL ceiling for him. If you could, Jim, harp back to the first slide because I do want to go over Ricky White because I believe he is on someone else's. Yeah. So Ricky White is a guy that, Ricky White was a guy I've been on since May 30th of the summer. So May 30th, 2024. He was one of my first draft crushes of the entire 2025 draft. Plays the position the right way. Super long speed athlete. He's a burner. He's 6'1". He's slender. That's why they call him Slick Ricky. Has good hands, good routes. Very refined player. Plays special teams. I'm pretty sure he alone had like 3 or 4 pump blocks, which would have been better than the second best team in the FBS at blocking punts. Just him.
Mm-hmm.
So special teams experience. He can come in, be a Z, be a slot for you. I really like what he has to offer, just being able to be, at worst, a good special teams player, and at best, you're getting a borderline 1,000 yard receiver for whoever drafts him.
Do we have a
Preach.
All-Star game invite for Ricky White? Do we know?
Let me check.
I want to say Hula or Shrine.
I believe it was Hula, but we're gonna check it.
East-West Shrine. Invited. Yep.
Thank you. So I remembered seeing that he accepted an invite, but I was confident it wasn't to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
So,
Cole, I
yes.
agree with everything you said.
He's a great player. Awesome.
Yeah. I love Ricky White.
And just to give the audience a little bit of context, so these graphics are really new. Like, I had an idea, I told my developer, and her and her sister came up with these. But here's the color codes. So when you see blue, we're saying that's a blue chip grade, round 1 grade. The green is a round 1-2 tier. The magenta or purple is round 2. And then there's a round 2-3, which is, I believe, what Tre Harris and Tez Johnson. So does that mean that you have a 3rd round grade on Ricky White?
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
Jacory Brooks is also a 3rd round grade. I messed that up in the graphic.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
Yeah.
point that out.
So everybody's learning how to make these graphics for the first time. So everything is being graded with a significant curve.
Good.
Okay, and then here's the last group of wide receivers. If you see green, I believe that is around 6 to 7 grade. The color that you see Moose Muhammad and Zakari Franklin would be a UDFA grade. So Cole, that's correct, right? You have Moose Muhammad and Zakari Franklin as UDFA, right?
Correct.
All the green that you see here would be around 6 to 7. And then on Bill's, he only went to round 5. So this is a round 4 or 5 grade, right? So Bill, all these guys for you are around 4 or 5?
Yeah, they're around 4 or 5, and I have an additional probably 15, 16 guys that go into round 6 and 7, just showing how deep this class is, that 30 wide receivers are going to be drafted within the first 5 rounds.
Yeah. So an average draft has 33 wide receivers selected. And if you need to check my math on that, you can go to Draft Tech. They have all of the positional averages round by round. So if you see 30 wide receivers with a round 5 or better grade, it's interesting to see, like, because even Cole, you said it earlier in this podcast that you didn't think it was a great wide receiver class.
Not at the top. Not at all.
So when you make that assessment, Cole, you're making it based upon like how many guys get a round 1 grade?
How many guys get a top 100 grade, to be honest with you?
Okay. And I mean, it's going to be difficult to beat the 18 that were taken last year.
Though, yeah.
Right.
But that's not even my standard. My standard is the 2023 class where I at least had Zay Flowers and Jackson Smith and Jigba that I was like, first round players. I'm okay with it not being the best class, but this class I'm pulling hairs here. It's running thin up top, and I just can't get behind it, and I don't think I ever will.
Right. And I measure it completely differently because I measure it based upon like how many are going to go in the first 5 rounds. I measure like a draft depth because to me, rounds 1 through 5 are where you get your starters and rosterable players. So, but we have different measurements, and that's okay. Because you're seeing, like Bill is saying, that he thinks 30 receivers can go in the first 5 based on how he grades.
Yep.
Kind of thing. So is there
and that's
any
where I'll see that it's a
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's where I'll see it's a deeper class, but I'm with Cole. There's not a lot of talent at the top. Like I have 3 first-round guys, which it's going to be pretty thin when you look at all the teams that have the needed receiver talent. Those 3 guys that are at the top are 3 guys that are bona fide first-rounders, but I have 30 guys that could go in rounds 1 through 5. This class for me is deep enough where if you have a team that takes a wide receiver in round 1 or 2, they could come back around at the top of day 3 in round 4 or 5 and take a second receiver, and I wouldn't blink because of how good and deep this class is.
Yeah. Is there any receiver on anybody's slide that they would like to talk about right now?
I can quickly go over Kobe Hudson.
Yep, please.
Consistent 700 yard receiving, about 5 touchdowns a year is what consistently for the past 2 to 3 Kobe Hudson's been doing at UCF. I really do feel bad for him because I guarantee you his grade would be a lot higher if he was not in an offense with a unfortunately dysfunctional quarterback room this year. It was a lot of, for a Gus Malzahn offense, it was not a Gus Malzahn type offense at UCF. It was really, really weird. It was a lot of running the football, not with the quarterback and not using their one good receiver. They obviously have more than one good receiver, but their one star college football level receiver in Kobe Hudson. So he didn't have a lot of production. His routes need a lot of bit of work, if we're being honest. But I like his size, I like his stature, and I like his consistent sort of vibe that he brings with consistent all throughout on the box score, consistent with how he has been in that offense for 4 to 5 years. Just everything about him is so consistent. You can't not put a draftable grade on Kobe Hudson, considering the fact that if you draft him, you have a good idea what you're going to get. This is a guy that you take 6th or 7th round, maybe even the 5th, and you take him and you're like, yeah, this is the guy that I can play a wide receiver for. He kind of reminded me of Keelan Cole a little bit. That you can just bring in there. He's going to make some big catches for you, but he's not going to be some big notable name player that a fan of another team is going to know. But he's going to be a guy that really helps your receiving core in a way that many people might not understand.
And I was trying to do a quick search. Does Kobe Hudson have a all-star invite? I just did a quick Google search and couldn't determine it from Google.
Hey, Cole, I'm going to look real quick. Hey, Cole, did you see any resemblance to former alumni Javon Baker at all out of Kobe Hudson?
Yes. He feels like he plays with that sort of same edge that Javon Baker played with. And the hands and the way that he caught the ball felt very similar. But I feel like Javon Baker was more refined as a route runner and a little bit more shifty than Kobe Hudson was, but I can totally see that. I almost did think about that as a comp, just from like my first hour of watching him. I was like, this kind of feels like Javon Baker, but I feel like Javon Baker was more productive and offered more of a ceiling than Kobe Hudson does.
Agreed. I don't see any invite, just a Reese's player of the week, but no invite.
Okay.
Yep.
Randall, is there anybody on your slide that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I'll talk about Antonio Williams. There, Clemson. He has a good chance of going back. He's a redshirt sophomore, but from what reports I've been seeing is that he's actually really considering declaring for the draft. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But 5'11", 190. He's quick. I had a comp to him like a Curtis Samuel-esque because he's kind of a do it all person sort of thing, and that's what I liked about him when we were comping him about 6 weeks ago. He does it all. Florida State hit 157 all-purpose yards in the run game and the pass game. First touchdown was a seam route where he grabbed the ball out of the air and took a hit, stayed on contact, and then ran 30 yards for the touchdown. And as I said, he's used everywhere. Deep shots, 20 plus air yards. He's 7 receptions on 11 targets, 227 yards for 4 touchdowns. Outside and middle of the field sort of thing. He's used in the short, used in the intermediate. So I really like his versatility around the field sort of thing, kind of a do-it-all Z kind of guy. So if he does declare, I would like to see I believe I put on my scout is somewhere like the LA Rams or the Commanders would be good for him.
Okay. Have we gone all the way around, or have I skipped? Like, Bill, did I ask you? I don't know if I asked you on this slide or not.
No, but there is one guy that I will talk about. He's going to play in the college football playoff this weekend from the University of Texas. It's Matthew Golden. Obviously, with Texas receivers, we look at him, you look at the speedsters of the world, the Worthies, the Bonds, speedster like that. And Matthew Golden's kind of in that same mold. He's got really good long speed. He can create separation due to his crisp route running ability. The biggest thing I grade wide receivers on is their hands. If you can't catch as a wide receiver, you are almost useless. But the biggest thing I grade on is his hands, and there's just a consistency issue in contact, keeping a hold of passes. There's concentration drops that I've seen. Another thing for me is obviously there's an injury history with him. His medicals are going to be key to look at. But this is a guy that Texas is relying on to kind of carry them through. Quinn Ewers is relying on him more and more as the season's gone on. Just look at the SEC championship game versus Georgia, 8 catches for 162 yards. I have him in that round 4, 5, closer to round 5 range, just because he has the speed. He has that long speed. This is kind of like a Devin Duvernay type of guy. And I know it's cheap comp because they're both from Texas, but it's that same kind of lower on the stature, not necessarily smaller receiver that has good long speed, but there's catch concerns and there's durability concerns. But I want to see him focus on catching the ball, especially in traffic. And I'm hoping that in this college football playoff, he uses these games to help boost his stock up my board, and I know others' boards, because we've all seen it in the past, especially as you get into the bowl games and you get into the postseason. You could have players that are lower on the board and use that success. Michael Penix Jr. last year parlaying, his success from a round 3 guy into 8th overall for Atlanta, and now he's starting for him. Yep. So that's what I want to see.
I was about to call Penix out when you brought that up. You beat me to it.
Yeah, so that's what I want to see from Golden. I want to see more of the Georgia game and less of his early season struggles, where it just seemed like he couldn't hold on to the ball to save his life. So that's why he's still here, because of that speed. But man, the hands and the concentration drops really make it tough to love him. But he's a day 3 sleeper, and I know some people have him significantly higher, and I just don't see it yet. But I think if he blows up in the college football playoff, like he has the ability to do so, he'll probably be significantly higher in that day 2 range.
Okay. Is there any other player that any of the 3 of you want to cover?
I want to just quickly go over the 3 guys that I have graded but weren't on the simulator when I had made the graphics.
Sure.
So I'll start with my favorite of the 3, personal favorite. Devontae Ross out of Troy, 5'11", 160-pound wide receiver. He's a junior, very light, shows up on film, has trouble with press, but he's fast. Had over 1,000 yards this year, 11 touchdowns with a career-long catch of 98 yards, by the way. Averaged 13.7 a catch, which is very, very solid. You kind of get what you see with him. He's a speedster, has solid hands, shifty in his routes, but can be refined, a little bit sharper. Press coverage, obvious issue he's probably sub 160, if I'm going to be honest with you. He's a junior, so he probably should, and from what I've heard, he probably is coming back to Troy for another year. But he's a guy I wanted to highlight. Next is Joey Hobart out of Texas State. Shout out my buddy Telek Lockett, offensive lineman for them. He went to, I believe, Utah Tech. In 2022, dominated, put up like 16 touchdowns and 1,600 yards. Transferred into Texas State and didn't have the same level of production or domination. He's a smaller guy and he's older. He's a 6-year senior. I have a UDFA grade on him, but just wanted to quickly harp over him. He has nice routes. He's kind of your stereotypical slot receiver, not super athletic, not going to wow you with anything. But he's just all around all right, and I think he can come in and maybe create some noise in a rookie mini camp and end up sticking with the team throughout preseason, maybe become a preseason darling like I mentioned with Garrett Green in our group chat. But that's kind of what I have for Joey Hobert. And my highest graded of the three is LeJontay Wester. I don't really need my notes for this because I really like LeJontay Wester. You have Tez Johnson. You have Brennen Presley. LeJontay Western is somewhere in the middle of both of them. Everybody knows him from the Hail Mary catch against, I think, Baylor, where Storr threw it up. LeJontay made a crazy adjustment to dive back for the ball and caught it and sent the game to overtime. And LeJontay is a twitchy, fast, fluid route runner. He was at FAU, produced there, came to Colorado and had solid production as well in a relatively loaded wide receiver room with Jimmy Horn Jr. and Travis Hunter. Overall, I have a 4th round grade on LeJontay Wester, but I was teeter-tottering earlier when I had finished my grade on him. Solid player, another guy that adds to that depth of the receiver class that we had briefly talked about. So, yeah, those are the three guys that I just wanted to quickly talk about before we close out the list.
Thank you, because I knew I had to call on you to do that, and I completely forgot. You're keeping.
I forgot too. Yeah.
Cool. So, I'm going to pivot the conversation just briefly. So, everybody that's watching can create these graphics. Okay. You are 3 of the first 6 people in the history of the universe to create these graphics. And Randall was able to actually get his made between the 2 podcasts because there was one change he wanted to make. So it takes 10 minutes, but Bill, how easy is it to build the graphic according to you?
Oh, it's very easy, very simplistic, both ways, both just building the graphic with your players and building it with color and tiers. It's also very nice when you share it out on X and you can see it broken down by tiers. We can share screenshots of a Google sheet, but this is clearly nice, crisp, concise. You can share it out to your socials and then they can yell at you because you have Jayden Higgins as a UDFA where they have him as a round 3 grade, and then you can have fun competitions in discourse.
Yep. So Cole, how did making the graphics go for you?
Oh man, it was really simple. Got on there, just looked at my board, started filling in guys, giving them the tiers to the grades. Took me probably no more than 15 minutes, but overall it was a simple and easy process. Got it out, posted it on X. Got a few retweets, a couple interactions. Some people liked it. Some people probably hated it. I don't really care. It's my board. And it's an opinion right now. Nothing's a fact until about 2 years into the league. So
100%.
And Randall, anything to add on the graphics?
No, yeah, super quick. Jim put it, I was making them in between because I was obviously the one behind. So super easy, great. The graphic is great. I do love how you can just copy it real quick and put it anywhere you need to. Cole mentioned that, which is great. So great system. The mock draft, the simulator too, I love. I know some people don't, but I love the mock draft on the website as well. Mm-hmm. So big fan.
Well, thank you. So on behalf of Randall, Cole, and Bill, you guys have put in a lot of work to watch all of these players. I think, Cole, you said 72 hours of watching tape.
Over the last 5 days, it's probably been a lot closer to 100 just over the position in the last 2 weeks. So
there's just coffee cups all over the floor of your room, isn't there, Cole?
Just C4 cans, not sponsored.
There you go.
But all 3 of you have put in a lot of work. I'm very humbled with the work that you've put in. I've had a lot of fun doing this, and we're going to keep going. So every Friday, you're going to see Bill Cole and a few other people starting to do Senior Bowl prep. After Monday's running back linebacker podcast, which closes out running backs and linebackers, they're also going to be doing Senior Bowl coverage. And Draft Professor will have 3 people at the Senior Bowl. So there's 3 of us that will be there. So you'll be getting some live podcasts from the Senior Bowl as well. And then you can catch Randall on Wednesdays with Jacob doing tight ends. I think they have one more tight end episode. And then they're going to find another thing on the draft to talk about, I think. So
Yeah, we have the college football tomorrow morning too, preview.
good reminder. Thanks, Randall. So tomorrow morning, college football preview, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central, right, Randall?
That is correct.
Cool. So on behalf of all of us, there's a lot of you watching. Hit that subscribe, hit that like, find Sparks Scouting on X. Find, is it Cole_NFL? I can't read the writing that's that small.
Colp_NFL on Twitter, all lowercase.
There we go. At Randall Slifer on X and Blue Sky. I'm Jim at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic on X and YouTube. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Friday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.